I'm going to continue to make these videos about people who I've met in my life, because these are the people that the MK Ultra program introduced in my life, and they only want their worst agents around me. That is what the US military is. It's the death corporation. They are employed to kill people. They are employed to torture and kill people. That is what the US military is there for. So the people that they've introduced in my life are the worst type of people that they could get in the military. So it's like if Jeffrey Dahmer lived in your apartment building, if Ted Bundy lived in your apartment building, and they told you their name was Mr. Ed, Mr. Erik Ed, and they were real polite and real nice to you, and you got to know them on a first name basis. And every day the military plotted to abduct you so that Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy could do terrible things to you on video, so they could not only kill you, but also profit off of your death. You would want to expose them even if you didn't catch them in the act of doing some sort of heinous crime or doing something terrible. And maybe in the future, when people are looking at these reports, they might have information, as in, that's the guy that was arrested in some other state for doing something terrible. So somebody else would identify him or recognize him as somebody else, or have some information on him. So this guy is known as Erik Lake from Brookline, Massachusetts. He lived in the same apartment building as I did in the year 1996. My first year of college, I went to school in Hartford, Connecticut, and I missed all my buddies. And I thought it would be great to get back to Massachusetts because I had a lot of friends who I met in boarding school the year before. So I said, I really don't like going to school in Hartford. I think I will have a better time going back to school in Massachusetts. So my mom was cool enough to help me find a school and help me get an apartment in Brookline. I was going to the University of Massachusetts, and they did not have dorms on the campus. So that went on to be a miserable year, in part due to the fact that all of my friends who I had met in 1994, our senior year of high school and boarding school, all of them had left for school themselves. And there were no longer too many people that I knew in the area. So I was pretty much alone. And the University of Massachusetts campus is a desolate looking place, at least when I went to school there. It was one of the most depressing schools I've ever gone to. And it was more like a community college in that the kids wouldn't really act too friendly. I remember walking from class to class, and it was dead silence in the hallways. And all you could hear was people's feet kind of tapping on the floor. Nobody smiled, nobody made eye contact, and it was just like a bunch of little robot drones kind of shuffling around that campus. And a lot of them seemed older. So this was the most depressing campus I'd ever been on. So that turned out to be a pretty depressing year for me. I was 19 or 20 at that time. So I had a little studio apartment. There were 3 apartments on our floor. We all shared a bathroom with a shower, and we all had a small room. And on my floor was this guy named Erik Lake. So Erik Lake, he was around 6 foot tall, maybe around 180 or 190 pounds. He was older, I would say in his 50s when I met him. And Erik spoke in a voice that suggested a German opera singer.
He spoke like this, as if there was pressure on his throat. He tried to keep his voice very low.
He did not give off the impression of being homosexual, but I would see him coming or going with a man around his age that looked like a homosexual. He acted effeminate, and that was Erik's good buddy that I always saw him going in and out of the apartment with. And I was polite and friendly, and I would say, hey, how you doing? How are you? So a few times in the hallway, Erik would try to make brief conversation with me, and he would be slurring his words, and sometimes he'd be holding some beer that he just picked up, And I think one time he may have asked me if I had a cigarette or some weed. So we basically struck up the conversation, and he made it clear that he had alcohol. And since I was underage, Erik would have no problem going to the store for me. If I wanted alcohol, all I would have to do was ask Erik to go to the liquor store for me, and he would buy me whatever alcohol I wanted. I just had to give him the money. So sometimes Erik would leave his door open on our floor, and he will be blasting some crazy music. He liked Frank Zappa, and he would be walking around drinking. So either I would come back from school or come back from the store, and I would see his door open, the music blasting, and him drinking beer. So say, "How you doing?" And he would strike a conversation up, and it became, I wouldn't say normal, but I would say at least every week or two, when Erik would open his door, turn on the music, and have the beer out, it was like an invitation to come drink with him. And he would buy 40 ounces of Budweiser, and he would have quite a few 40s in a small fridge in his apartment. And he had a table by the window, and we would sit there drinking beer and smoking cigarettes. And I found out that Erik liked the same writer as I liked, whose name was Charles Bukowski. And Charles Bukowski was also an alcoholic, much like Erik and myself. And Bukowski's claim to fame was that he loved to get drunk and write. He couldn't write too well. He didn't have the passion to write unless he was drinking. And he said that was X-lax for his soul. So at that point, I had read a lot of Bukowski, and I started writing a couple short stories and poems, but I just started writing. And Erik said that he also was a little bit of a writer himself. And so we would discuss stuff like Charles Bukowski and I guess musicians like Frank Zappa. I had never heard about Frank Zappa, but Erik Lake liked Frank Zappa. And he would play Frank Zappa records and tell me about Frank Zappa. So Erik went on to tell me that he had been in the Navy. He had been in the military, and he served for many years. I think he said something about being there for a long time. And he said that he would travel all around the world. And I think he said he had gone to Turkey. And in Turkey they smoked hashish. And I guess when they would go into a pier, he knew how to get free hashish. Which was that he would go to the different people on the street, the vendors on the street, and ask how much something was. And the person would tell him. And if he started to argue or negotiate the price, all the vendors would know that it was then time to smoke hashish. They would pull out their hashish pipe and they would smoke together, then reach a negotiation about how much something should go for. And I said they just didn't sell hashish, so you didn't have to go through all of that. And he said, well, that's just what they did. So that's what I did to get hashish. So that was one of the stories that he told me. So at one point I asked him if he was gay. I said, the guy that you hang out with seems to be effeminate. He seems to be a homosexual. So I said, I don't have any stereotypical beliefs about homos. But out of curiosity, are you homosexual? And he said that he was bisexual. And the exact quote that he said was that he would not leave half the world out. So Erik Lake was a bisexual military guy who had spent a long time in the military. So like I said, I would not hang out with Erik too often. I would say once every week or two. And for the most part, at times Erik would act like he was angry about something, that he was real grumpy. And when we would have conversations, whether it be about writing or art or music, he would kind of take a condescending attitude toward you. So I did notice that he seemed like he was hateful at times. So I really do not know why somebody who would be in their 50s would want to go out of their way to hang out with a 19-year-old kid. Like now that I'm 45 years old and I see the kids in the nearby college, they just look younger and younger the older I get. They just look like middle school kids to me now. I really wouldn't have a thing in the world to say to these kids. So I couldn't imagine being 50 and seeing a 19-year-old kid in the neighborhood and then going out of my way to strike up a conversation with him and then want him to come over and drink. And then when he does, to catch this negative attitude at times and just glare at him like I didn't like him. But how I rationalized that at the time was that he was just an old drunk, and that's the way old drunks were, mean. So he was obviously pissed off about, I don't know, his low income. I think he said he gets a disability check. And he said something about his landlord always trying to raise the rent on him. And he had been in that apartment for, 5 or 10 years. And he really liked it because of the view. He was at the back of the building, and he had kind of a big window where you could see the fire escape. And there was something like a little area in the back of the building, like a courtyard with a couple of trees back there. So it was a little peaceful opposed to the front road. I had a view of the front street where there's constantly traffic going back and forth. So Brookline is basically Boston. It's an area in Boston. It's right near the main city of Boston. So it's a very busy city-like area. So I don't know if he was angry because just things were tough. But now that I look back at it, he was a military agent. And they had planned for me to live in that apartment because they always want to surround you with their people. That is how the military takes over, is they choose some families. Their families may have been successful. Their families may have shown that they were intelligent. They made intelligent decisions. But my firm belief is that you get noticed or targeted by the military through the MK Ultra program. And lots of the MK Ultra program is done just with operatives that set up situations to control people in. They don't always use radio frequency and implant technology in MK Ultra. And of course they targeted their own military people first. If you're a regular 18-year-old kid, you come from a good family, you want to go join the service and then get out, find a woman, get married, very often you will get noticed. What they will do via MK Ultra is put these guys into certain situations that will sabotage their home life, and they will try to set you up so that you will be under their control. So I believe that my grandfather caught the attention of the military when he served for them, especially that my grandmother was a beautiful woman, and they went on to have 4 beautiful daughters and a handsome son. That really caught the attention of the U.S. military. He was a gunnery sergeant in the Army. He was a World War II veteran. He died just last year in 2020, and he was one of the oldest living World War II veterans. The military likes to employ and support a group of people that are very sadistic and cruel. And the military knows that one thing is the enemy against that, and that is love. That is normal people helping each other out. And that gives way to compassion and empathy and basically just normality. So when you have a wife and you have kids, it changes you for the better. And you start looking at everybody in a better light, in a more normal light. So the military does not like military people with families. They have always been the ones that want to do things logically and ethically and fairly. And they don't want that in war. So homosexuality is encouraged in the military because homosexuals do not want to have a wife and kids and a family. Homosexuality also suggests that they are a victim of MK Ultra, mind control programming, and where they develop multi-personality disorder. And one of their main personalities is a woman personality. It was a documentary about like the Navy. They would dress up one of the sailors, one of the younger sailors, as the maiden of the voyage. So he would be on a ship and he would have long hair and a dress on, and it would be funny that they're all drinking and he's the maiden. There are no girls allowed in the military, he'll be the girl. Ha ha, how funny it is. They're just really laughing it up. But what they won't tell you is that is how these old homosexuals will rape the younger soldiers and sailors. And the ones that put up with that the most have been getting abused since they were young kids and being programmed to be homosexuals. So that is what they do in the U.S. military. And when they get out of the U.S. military, when they are sent as non-active duty military personnel or as civilians, they are all taught to join a secret society like the Freemasons. And in the Freemasons, they have ranks, they have medals. They are also controlled by the military. So it's like a secret military base, a secret society that they're all taught to join. And people don't really know what it's about. They think it's like the Rotary Club. They think it's a men's club. But what it is, it's a military order where the military takes over society. It has its influence over society through the Freemasons. It's the military control of society. So it's usually a military order or a military secret society. And a big one is called the Odd Fellows. The female branch of the Odd Fellows is the Rebeccas. Then of course there are the Freemasons. And the female branch of the Freemasons are called the Eastern Stars. And then there are many groups called like the Knights of Malta and the Knights of Columbus. So these are all secret societies, Freemasonic secret societies that are controlled by the military. And homosexuality is all rampant in those groups too, because that is what is endorsed in the military. The straight guys, like my grandfather, they become targets of the military, especially if these people are intelligent and they do not fall victim to these MK Ultra games. And a big part of the MK Ultra games is to become what is called their hoe. And it sounds kind of like something out of the slums, but it actually goes back long before some sort of hip-hop mentality talking about pimps and hoes. It goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And to say that somebody is your hoe or they're hoeing, what that means is that they are under your control. So if they get a guy, if they turn a guy into an alcoholic, and instead of bringing home his week's salary to pay his bills and to raise his kids up right, instead he takes that money, he goes off to a bar, and he buys all the guys drinks, and then he buys drugs, and then he spends money on a prostitute. He is their hoe. So that is why the military likes to control the drug market. That is why the military likes to control strip clubs and prostitution. And that is why the military likes people to be drunks, because they make poor decisions that will end up ruining their life. They get divorced, they lose their families, they get arrested, they kill themselves, they become their hoe, is how they say it. So all these gay men who are above the law, because the Freemasons include the chief of police, judges, lawyers. It's the whole inside gay network of the area. You just go to the Masonic Lodge, and if you need work, just talk to so-and-so. He owns something. Talk to this guy. He knows where to get work. And they always know to hire their own people. So that is how they get ahead. And that is their elitist view. And everybody else are just their hoes. They're something to use and take advantage of, because these guys are the elite and the highest level of the elite. The big secret is that all of the elite are homosexual. Some of them might even have wives and children, but a lot of that is a facade. There are arranged marriages. The kids are adopted. The wives are artificially inseminated, and it just gets worse and worse. And their job now is to not only infiltrate American society. They've already done that. It got really bad around the Vietnam War. And now they've completely infiltrated American society. They've taken over all businesses. They've taken over the media, all the newspapers, all the power centers, the hospitals, doctors, all the law firms. They've all been taken over by the military and their Freemasonic orders. And now what they're doing is they're training their barracks of military men and women to spread out and start dating all the straight people, all the non-military, non-secret society members, all the regular citizens. And that is called their Flower of Life program. When they are going to marry into all of your houses, they want to marry all your daughters, they want to marry all your sons. And that is ultimately to control you and then kill you, because they want to restructure society so that there's no longer too much freedom. They want a military police state when everything is controlled. They don't want too much traditional marriages and families anymore. They just want a police state where everything is arranged. Their big thing is it takes a village to raise a child. In other words, they want you to send your kids off to some boarding school to get educated by the state. And then there's nobody for the kids to go to when they start getting molested by these older homosexuals that want to program them to be homosexuals too. There's no one to protect these kids. There's no guardians for these kids. And that is what the military has done in all the orphanages. They've molested a lot of these kids. They've killed the ones who have resisted them, and they've promoted the ones who have gone along with it and encouraged these orphans to go join the military. And these orphans do not respect any sort of family unit. They never had any family unit. So if you tell a group of them that their next target is an American family and they get to do whatever they want to that American family, these men will consider that a great privilege to turn this family's life into a living nightmare and kill them in brutal and obscene ways. They will consider that a good time. That is how bad these men are, brought up in a hateful and sadistic military order where they're raped by hundreds of homosexual men since they were young kids. They are schizophrenic. They are completely insane. So that is what you're dealing with when you're dealing with the establishment and the military. So I guess a lot of people will have a hard time understanding that or accepting that until the military begins to mess with you, until the military begins to target you. And then the Great Awakening will occur about just how bad these people are, and you begin to see just what type of people do well in these military orders and these secret programs in the U.S. military. And when you begin to take a look at them, you begin to see how absolutely terrible and sinister the U.S. military really is. So Erik Lake was one of these men that were elected to live across the hall from me when I was in my sophomore year of college. He was one of the guys that would be on my floor, and one of the guys they wanted to be the friendly guy that had beer and cigarettes and viewpoints on writers like Bukowski and musicians like Frank Zappa. So Erik Lake is the type of guy they want as my influence. But I think that the whole bottom line was to get me abducted, drunk and abducted. So once again, I thank God and the angels in heaven for watching my back, because the military definitely does not serve and protect its civilians. The military is employed to attack, rape, and kill their civilians. So I want to thank God and the angels in heaven for watching my back when I was a 19-year-old idiot kid living by himself in a studio apartment in Brookline, Massachusetts. So I failed out of school that year because I was overwhelmed with depression. As soon as I moved into that apartment building, it was nothing but overwhelming depression and anxiety. Every time I went out to take a walk, go to the video store, go to the grocery store, go down to the T station, which is the subway station, and get on the train to my school, I would be overwhelmed with anxiety and depression. And when I got to my school, everybody in that school acted like little robots. So it was like living in a little military hell. And that is going to become more and more what society is as the military continues to kill more good people and basically continue to use mind control on programming and molesting people to grow up gay, it's going to get worse and worse. But back to Erik Lake, was that one morning, I remember Erik Lake opening up the door to my room. So as soon as he opened the door, I kind of looked up and I saw him opening the door. So I said something like, could I help you? And Erik said something like, just checking on you, kid. And he closed the door. So I remember locking the door, usually. I don't know if I left it open for some reason, but since I lived in the city of Boston, I was accustomed to locking the door. But now that I look back at it, I wouldn't be surprised if Erik Lake actually was the landlord over there, or the landlord was Erik's good buddy and had given Erik a key to the apartment, and Erik just used his key that morning or that afternoon to open the door. So that's one of the things that I remember about Erik Lake that stands out. The last thing that I want to mention about what stands out during that year, it was 1996, and I woke up one night and I had a complete vertigo, and it was like I could not catch my breath, and I was going through something like a anxiety attack. I had never had an anxiety attack before, but it was like vertigo. It was like you wake up having a nightmare and you're still dreaming, and that you have a bunch of weird feelings like hysteria or anxiety, and it was hard to catch my breath. Felt like my heart was beating at a fast rate of speed, and the room looked like it was spinning. And this lasted, I would say, maybe 5 or 10 minutes before the feeling subsided and I went back to sleep. So I've never had that before that time. But I think what they did was they used the radio frequency energy, the directed energy weapons that night on me. And these weapons place people into an erratic frame of mind. It makes them extremely nervous. It affects their breathing and their heart rate, and it induces a form of psychosis on them. And this is done through the radio frequency energy technology. So I think that I was a victim of that technology. So I guess a great deal of this mind control programming is that a great deal of people, once subjected to these radio frequency energy spectrums, once they are hit with these directed energy weapons, I think a great deal of people end up disassociating. They go into a panic state, and they might wander out of their apartment and really have no idea what they're doing. And I think a great deal of these people in the MK Ultra program, these agents, are programmed through these radio frequency energy systems. So the military can induce behavior in all the soldiers underneath their command. When it's time for everybody to disassociate, they know what button to press. When it's time to get everybody enraged, they know what button to press. When it's time to get everybody to go into a state of fear, they know what button to press. And this is how these people are programmed. This is sophisticated mind control using radio frequency energy systems. This is how they can get people to switch personalities. This is how they control everybody in the military, and now everybody in society too. So the military does not like people who resist the programming. They like the people that go along with the programming. They are easy to control. That is who they support. They press a button. Everybody goes into a robotic, unsure state, and the only thing they know how to do is follow orders. That's a perfect state for this criminal U.S. military. That is what they even tell everybody they are all about. They say they want to break everybody down and rebuild them into something that the military controls. They want you so unsure of yourself, so broken, that the only thing that you know how to do is to listen to the commands from the command center and do exactly as you're told. To launch nuclear weapons, to shoot at a crowd of defenseless people, to shoot at innocent people, to attack little kids, to blow up an elementary school. So this radio frequency mind control technology assist them in putting everybody into that state where they become like robotic zombies who will do whatever they are commanded to do. So those are the chosen people for the U.S. military. So when they end up using this radio frequency technology on regular people and they put up a fight, they try to stay calm. They don't want to get pissed off. They don't disassociate. They're not mean to their kids. They don't get so depressed due to this radio frequency energy that they want to run out and get drunk whenever somebody hits them with a certain type of energy. These are the people that the U.S. military considers a target to take out. No matter what they do to this certain guy, he will not fall under the control of the U.S. military. So he will be a threat to them in the future when they completely restructure society. And his kids may be just like him. So we want to take out that whole bloodline. The military wants to restructure society so that there is only people who could be highly controlled by these radio frequency energy systems. They do not want the stronger and tougher people to be in society, because these are the people who have always tried to stop them. And usually what makes them strong is that they love their families and they know the difference between what is right and what is wrong. And they are constantly taught to have self-control when you're dealing with little kids who are just crazy and idiotic and they just want to do whatever they want to do. It could get frustrating. So the nature of a parent is to find self-control for your children's sake, to find self-control for your wife's sake, self-control for your brother's sake, for your sister's sake, for your aging mother's sake, and then for your community's sake, for all the people in the community's sake. The U.S. military is the opposite of that. They want you to have no self-control whatsoever. The only control the military wants over you is military control. They want people who are not only conditioned, but have proved that they could lose control at any point and do whatever they are ordered to do by the military. Whatever situation they are put into, they will go along with it. They don't want anybody with their own mind that'll say, hey, this is crazy. I got to figure out a way to calm down and get through this. I got to figure out a way to maintain my self-control because people are counting on me. They do not have a little voice that says, I'm not going to shoot into a crowd of unarmed people because that is an insane order and that is not the right thing to do. They want military people that don't have any of that. They want military people that have no self-control whatsoever, and they will do whatever they are commanded to do. And so these secret military orders involved in trauma-based mind control and these programs that you may have heard about, like the Phoenix program in the Vietnam War that exists to torture prisoners of war through rape and basically these brutal torture methods. Regular people with self-control and who can maintain their sensibilities and their consciousness and their humanity, they're not going to go along with that. So these programs that practice MK Ultra and trauma-based mind control, they have people doing worse and worse and worse things to show that they are under the control of the U.S. military. So what they do can be considered satanic. It is totally without God what they are doing. They have no concept of what is right and what is wrong. They have no idea what they're doing. They're disassociated. They're enraged. They're put into an altered state. Their IQs are so low to begin with that they've been roboticized at this point and only know to do whatever pops into their heads. This is your U.S. military, and this is what is valued when the U.S. military's objective is to attack their own country and figure out who is going to resist this radio frequency mind control programming. Who will resist it? And then eliminate those people, because their plan in the future is to use this energy system that will quickly put everybody into an altered state where it's like waking up in a nightmare. And to say that it's hard to think and it's hard to maintain composure is an understatement. So they really don't like the people, possibly like my grandfather, who was a sergeant in the Army and a World War II veteran, and people like me who have been resisting their program for over a decade now and trying to educate people to do the same. They really don't like me, but they do like these half-wit, low IQ idiots that they can press a button and they lose consciousness, and the only thing they know how to do is wait for instructions. And when those instructions are to commit insane and heinous acts on people, the U.S. military knows exactly who will do that.